Aspirants, how are you holding up? I know this stretch of preparation is testing. The excitement is real, but so is the quiet pressure, because this examination can change the entire shape of your life. You are in the right place. This is the Sociology Desk, issue 030, and today we move through two events that will sit very well in paper 1. The first is the Ras Laffan gas plant explosion in Qatar, in which 12 Indian workers lost their lives. The second is the notification of the Foreign Contribution Regulation Amendment rules. Both are not just news items. Both are answer questions sitting inside news items. Let us begin. Our first event is the explosion at the Barzan local gas supply facility inside the Ras Laffan industrial city in Qatar on the night of 21 June, in which 12 Indian workers lost their lives. This maps to paper 1, Unit Works and Economic Life, Subunit Labor and Society. Do not write this as an accident in your answer. Treat it as evidence of a structural pattern. Now think about how this looks at the household level. There is a widow in a village in Bihar or Andhra Pradesh who has just been told that her husband will not come home. That is biography. That is private trouble. But 12 such households in one night is not 12 unrelated tragedies. It is the visible surface of a single labor regime in which India routinely exports working bodies to Gulf energy infrastructures it does not own. The move you must make in your answer is to refuse the language of accident and write structure instead. The current event is your evidence. The theory is your destination. Anchor your answer on C. Wright Mills and his idea of the sociological imagination, set out in his 1959 book of the same title. Mills argued that no social study has completed its task until it has located the personal trouble inside the historical structure that produced it. So, 12 repatriated coffins from Doha are not personal grief alone. They are the public issue of India's emigration economy under Gulf Petro-Capitalism. If you can write that one sentence cleanly, you have already separated yourself from the average script. Layer on Antonio Giddens. In The Consequences of Modernity, Giddens writes about time-space distantiation, meaning that in late modernity, our local lives are organized by events occurring at a great distance. Apply it here. The Iranian missile strike in March on Qatari gas units cut Qatar's LNG capacity by 17% and forced the very restart that produced this explosion. So a missile in March in the Gulf becomes a widow in June in Bihar. That is your structural sentence. And then close with Marx, the reserve army of labor. Gulf accumulation depends on a disposable migrant pool whose social reproduction is paid for not by Qatar, but by India. Now, put on the examiner's lens. An average script will open with the date and place of the Ras Laffan blast. List the casualties. Mention Embassy of India's response. Perhaps add a line on Gulf safety standards. That script lands at around 14 out of 20 because no theory has been deployed. The 18 or 19 out of 20 script does 5 things differently. 1. The opening line is a structural claim, not a definition. 2. It names sociological imagination and attributes it precisely to Mills' 1959. 3. It uses the event in only 1 or 2 lines as evidence, not as the topic. 4. It adds a counter-thinker, A.G. Frank's dependency framework, to push back against the accident framing. 5. It closes with a forward-looking line about India's failure to replace its labor export model. The current event is your evidence. The theory is your destination. Repeat that sentence to yourself every time you write. A probable question for Mains 2026, 20 marks, paper 1. In the light of the 2026 Qatar gas plant deaths of Indian migrant workers, critically examine the relevance of Marx's reserve army of labor for understanding India's emigration economy. Write it in 250 words. Do it tonight. Now the second event. On 22 June, the Union Ministry of Home Affairs notified the Foreign Contribution Regulation Amendment rules, the 10th such amendment since the original rules of 2011. This maps to Paper 1, Unit Politics and Society, Subunit Nation, State, Citizenship, Democracy, Civil Society, Ideology. Do not write this as a policy update. Write it as a shift in the very meaning of civil society in India. Read the substance of the rules carefully. NGOs must now disclose their social media accounts and websites. They must declare whether their key functionaries have published any books, magazines, or articles during the year. They must specify the precise states where they will use foreign funds. And they must spend at least 10 lakh rupees in foreign contributions across 2 years to retain registration. Notice what has shifted. Earlier, FCRA was an instrument of financial oversight. After 22 June, it is also an instrument of ideational legibility. The state now wants to know not just where the money goes, but what the organization says, who its functionaries are, and where they operate. You may be wondering how to bring this into a 20 marker. Here is how. Anchor this answer on Jurgen Habermas and his concept of the colonization of the life world, set out in the theory of communicative action. Habermas distinguishes the life world, where meaning is reproduced through communicative dialogue, from the system, which is governed by the steering media of money and administrative power. He says the life world is colonized when system imperatives penetrate the communicative practices through which mutual understanding is reproduced. Now apply this. When the state demands that civil associations declare their social media and publications and functionary lists, it is precisely the administrative system penetrating the communicative core of civic life. This is colonization of the life world in textbook form. Here in Antonio Gramsci. In the prison notebooks, Gramsci argues that civil society is not a residual sphere standing outside political power. It is the terrain on which the dominant class organizes its hegemony, where consent for the existing order is manufactured and contested. Apply this. The amendment's silence on the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, which is registered neither as trust nor as society, and therefore falls outside the FCRA net, is not an oversight. It is the structural feature of a selective regulatory perimeter. That sentence in your answer marks you as a candidate who reads the news structurally, not partisanly. Examiner's lens again. An average script on FCRA opens with the date, lists the new rules, mentions opposition criticism, and concludes that civil society is under threat. That script lands at 14 because it has narrated, not analyzed. The 18 or 19 script does 5 things differently. 1. It opens by naming the type shift from financial oversight to ideational legibility. 2. It attributes life world colonization precisely to Habermas's theory of communicative action. 3. It folds in Gramsci's reading of civil society as hegemonic terrain to explain the selective perimeter around the RSS. 4. It adds Foucault on governmentality because the registration of every key functionary is exactly the kind of administrative legibility Foucault theorized. 5. It closes not with grievance, but with a structural question. Can Indian democracy sustain civil society without communicative autonomy? Once again, the current event is your evidence. The theory is your destination. A probable question for mains. 2026 20 marks, paper 1. In the light of the Foreign Contribution Regulation Amendment, Rules 2026, critically examine Habermas' thesis of the colonization of the life world in the Indian civil society context. 250 words. Write it before you sleep tonight. Quick revision before we close. Event 1. Ras Laffan. 12 Indian migrant workers. Paper 1 works, an economic life. The anchors are Mills's sociological imagination, Giddens' time-space distantiation, and Marx's reserve army of labor. Event 2. FCRA Amendment Rules notified 22 June. Paper 1 Politics and Society. The anchors are Habermas on the colonization of the life world, Gramsci on civil society as terrain of hegemony, and Foucault on governmentality. Memorize the concept, then memorize the thinker, then memorize the work. Always together, never one without the others. I want you to remember one thing as you go back to your books. UPSC preparation is a long and draining road, and the real difference between aspirants who clear and aspirants who do not is rarely raw intelligence. It is the discipline of showing up to the same desk, day after day after day, when no one is watching, when the result is still months away. That stubborn daily return is the actual secret. Now, a quick word for those of you who want to go further. The full-style PDF brief for today, with the complete answer, blocks for every event, model answers written exactly to 250 words and 150 words, the answer skeleton, the quotation arsenal you can reproduce in the examination hall, the concept flashcards, the examiner's notes for each event, and the probable mains 2026 questions is prepared daily and sent only to subscribers of the Sociology Desk. There are two ways to reach us. You can drop your email address in a comment below this video, or you can write directly to team@upsdesk.com. I will be honest with you, this is a paid subscription. It is paid because the quality, the daily discipline, and the competitive edge it gives you over an aspirant who is still hunting through general current affairs are real, and they are worth what we charge. If you want that edge, write to us. If not, keep coming back here every day, because we are here every day. Go well and write well.